Well, the Queensland government is preparing to borrow, they don't have it, another $4 billion to splash cash around the state ahead of the election. The Queensland Treasurer Cameron Dick confirming the Queensland government's total debt will hit close to $102 billion by the middle of next year. But they say they won't increase taxes.
At a time when we can increase our borrowings without increasing the tax burden, it's appropriate that we do so to support the economy and Queensland jobs.
Sky News host of Across Australia, my man in Brisbane, Peter Gleeson, joins me now. I had to go to you a bit early in the week because I just think this is so extraordinary. No budget, but a whole lot of numbers flashed out before an election, and a $4 billion war chest and debt to your eyeballs in Queensland.
The hubris, the arrogance, it knows no bounds with this government, I've got to say, Peter. I mean, here's a Treasurer who is saying to the good folk of Queensland, just trust us. We've buggered up the economy for the last 5 years. We're $100 billion in debt. We put on stacks of extra public servants. But we won't actually worry about giving you the real figures until November 30 when you re-elect us. Now, you remember at the last federal election, Peter, a bloke called Bill Shorten, he put the Labor Party's climate change renewables targets on the never, said just elect me and then I'll get to that. The people of Australia rejected that particular notion. Look, you look at this particular government now and you look at the fact that they're a one-trick pony. It's all about COVID. That's what it's all about. And they're pinning their hopes on the fact that Queenslanders will forget that they are the worst fiscal managers in Queensland history. They've buggered up child safety. They've got no good record on youth crime. The integrity scandals are through the roof. I think yesterday was a really dark day for Queensland politics, Peter, because, you know, people want to know exactly what the situation is. They can't manage, they couldn't manage a chalk raffle, let alone the current state budget.
And Labor, there's no one else's money that they can't happily spend. I mean, I looked at those numbers in the budget, 232,000 public servants in Queensland. That's about the same level as the federal government. I mean, the Commonwealth has about that number of public servants. I just find it gobsmacking. And even beyond that, it looks like there's more integrity questions for the Premier today. Revelations that one of her former staffers and a former Labor campaign heavyweight, Evan Moorhead, is being paid by Labor to run their political campaign at the same time as acting as a lobbyist. Now, all of this is a bit murky because he's not meant to be a lobbyist in an area of which he's had anything to do with in his prior portfolio. But when you work for the Premier, mate, every portfolio is in your office. Do you think this will become an issue?
Absolutely, and I know the Australian are working on a very good follow tomorrow, which raises more questions about, as you put it, it's a great word, isn't it, murkiness attached to this. So you've got Evan Moorhead, former chief strategist for the Labor government, the Palaszczuk government, who resigned 12 months ago, set up his own company with a bloke called David Nelson. These two guys are Labor Party to their bootstraps. They are Labor political warriors. They've now got, so they're now being employed by the Labor Party to do the election campaign strategy leading into October 31. At the same time, they've got 32 new clients in the last 12 months who have links with, of course, the Labor Party, and who also are demanding access to certain cabinet ministers that, of course, these particular gentlemen can arrange. I think murky is being kind, and, of course, Peter, this also comes off the back of integrity scandals surrounding Jackie Trad, who resigned as Deputy Premier and Treasurer over Gabbergate, the house purchase, and, of course, David Barbagallo, who's the Chief of Staff, former Chief of Staff of the Premier, who's also the subject of a Crime and Corruption Commission probe over his role in being a part director of a company that received a $300,000 grant from the Labor Party, from the Labor government, the Palaszczuk government, for a start-up. So, look, there's a lot of questions attached to this. The integrity bill, you know, he says, Moorhead says he's, you know, it's all above board. But, gee, you look at this and you go, again,
no
the
way.
hubris,
It needs some sunlight.
the arrogance.
It needs some sunlight. Hey, now, I'm going to put your political brain together with your racing brain here. So last week I kept asking myself, what was the blood price that all of these crossbenchers got out of the Labor Party for support of that state of emergency extension? We know it was rammed through the Parliament at 2 a.m. Debate was gagged. I mean, there is no doubt they all would have been paid off. Well, could this have been what secured the vote of the Animal Justice Party, do you reckon? Today, this from Racing Victoria. I used to work for Racing Victoria many, many years ago, I'll declare that. But this from Racing Victoria, pushing for further restrictions on whip use by jockeys. They've come out proposing this, that from the 1st of January next year, 2021, riders will be only permitted to use the whip on a maximum number of occasions throughout the entire race and never in the horse's consecutive strides. RV, Racing Victoria, is proposing that the maximum number of strikes be between 5 and 8 occasions per race. Now, Racing New South Wales boss Peter V'landys has hit back. He has said they can grandstand and look for cheap publicity all they like. We'll follow proper corporate governance, excuse me, and express ourselves at the meeting like they should be. Now, I've got a lot of internal messages. I'm sure you have too. This stinks to high heaven.
Racing Victoria Chief Executive Giles Thompson should resign because he has capitulated to Martin Pakula, the bullfed minister down there, who's obviously doing the bidding of the Animal Justice Party and, of course, the Greens. That's why they rammed it through at 2 a.m. And I can tell you something now about these animal welfare zealots, Peter. They're going to start with the whip. Then it'll be jumps racing. Then they'll ban greyhound racing and harness racing. And the final prize, the Group 1 glory, will be banning thoroughbred racing altogether, a multi-billion-dollar industry that employs hundreds of thousands of Australians. These people are dangerous. Giles Thompson and Martin Pakula should hang their head in shame. They are allowing the fox into the henhouse on racing in this country.
And from what I'm told, there was no consultation. Giles Thompson's come out to say he supports Pakula. Pakula's come out to say he supports Giles Thompson.
Yeah, of course.
It looks pretty crook to me. This will be something that plays out, I am absolutely sure of, in coming days. Peter Gleeson, thank you for your time.
Good to see you, Peter.